So, of course, we are in the thick of voter service season. And with us today also, Paul Huffman is here. And Paul is also the voter service co-chair of our board. And he'll be talking about redistricting, but he also has been working very hard with candidate forums, and we do have monthly calls with all our voter service chairs. But we know that a lot of people participate in voter service other than just the leaders, and wanted to give an opportunity to update more members on all the different things that are going on. And most importantly, all the different resources we have available for us to work to empower voters. And we want to make a big point of that today, that and I'm going to share my screen here. All right. Oh, we don't need that one. Here we go. All right. And the big point I want to make today is beyond voter registration. We do a lot of voter registration, and it is critical, obviously, to register new voters every year. We also know, however, that getting out the vote is really also important, and we want to better engage and educate voters as well. So it really is something we want to make a point of too. Whenever we're registering to voters, there's lots of other ways we can continue to engage voters. And we know that people, for the most part, when they don't vote, it's because they don't know about the issues, they don't know about the candidates, or they don't know where to vote or how to vote. I have gotten a surprising number of calls from people who, for those of us who are in this work, it's hard to remember that most people aren't, right? So I got a call from a couple of major organizations that said, can you come and talk to us about why all our polling places have changed? Again, with redistricting, everything changed, but it's not on everybody's radar, right? So we have to remember that as we go about and do our work, that not everybody is, sitting around thinking about voting, right, as we are. So hopefully today this will give you an update on, just some of the other resources and ways that all of you in the work you do, both through the league, but also personally, can engage all those voters around you. All right, first of all, I want to just review our August Academy. I know we're technically in September. We call it September sessions, but I've taken on a new role of caring for my mother in our home. So we had to do some shuffling here. So thank you for your patience and for this rescheduled date. But our goals are still the same. We really want to help league leaders orient you all to your roles. We know that a lot of you are in these roles, and there's a lot of seasoned leaders, but like every profession, that there's always new things to learn, and there are new things that have happened and new resources for you. So we look at this as an annual refresher, but also a way for newer leaders to learn all the different ways you can act on your job. And also, please do keep putting notes in the chat. I will stop for questions periodically, but I can see the chat really well. I can't see you raise your hands as well when I am sharing my screen. If you use the official raise my hand thing, you pop to the top. So either use the official hand raise or put questions in the chat would be great. So anyway, August Academy is just a nice spot for us to try to organize our learning. So thanks for being here today. And these are the things we're going to touch on. And everything that is here is linked to a resource that can be very helpful to you. So you will also, of course, get these slides, and you don't need to remember all these links. You can relink to them from the slide deck that we'll send out. But we're going to briefly talk about candidate forums, our Vote 411, our partners, our pledging programs, nonpartisanship, the big question, these gets harder and harder, special populations, our naturalization ceremonies, voter service as a whole, and our new initiative, Elections 411. And we are going to have leaving the best for last. Paul Huffman is also then going to talk with us about redistricting and where we are. While we have all just redistricted, the process is not over. We start again, right? Looking ahead at what might happen in the next 10 years. So he'll give us an overview. I wanted to start briefly. We're not going to get into the thick of candidate forums, but I do want to point out a new resource that we're really excited about. In our Vote 411, as we'll look at today, people can see upcoming candidate forums, but we have now listed all of the candidate forums in all of the local leagues. And then when they've had the candidate forums, we link to the completed forums. So this has been a lot of work for Lorene in our office and Kristen. We're very thankful that they've done this. If you're a voter and you're on Vote 411, you can see what upcoming forums are coming. But we had requests for people to see, how to easily see those that have been recorded. So we now have a really nice list. Now, some of them like Brainerd, and I know some of the other leagues are still scheduling their forums. Not all the forums have been scheduled. And so we will continue to update this. But this is as updated list as possible. And you will see there are dozens and dozens, if not a couple hundred forums on this site. And so you can look on here for your own league, but we really, really encourage people to share this information, share it within your own circles. Getting people to candidate forums is a big deal. We've had some really exciting requests for partnering in 2023, just to set the stage, with groups like the Minnesota School Board Association. They've contacted us because there's so many school board races now that are really contentious, and you have up to like 24 candidates in one school district running for offices. And they contacted us and said, wow, we need more forums. And then a lot of them are in areas we don't have leagues. So we have a real opportunity coming up in 2023 to expand our impact by helping local communities and school districts and cities run those local elections, not run the elections, but be able to help them with more candidate forums. So that's something to keep on your radar. We'll definitely be recruiting for volunteers for candidate forums. And if you have a chance in your local league to volunteer for any of the candidate forums, please do. I think we're set this year with training for moderators, and we've done a lot of trainings. But this is a fabulous resource for, when you look at ABC, for example, look at all those primaries for people to learn those candidates. It's really, really exciting. Paul, did you want to say anything more, seeing you've been really involved in candidate forums? I'm putting him on the spot there. He might be. But anyway,
I'm sorry. Was that a question for me, Michelle?
Yeah, no.
I was making a note.
Yeah, if you have any more, or anything else you want to say about candidate forums before we move on.
Well, I mean, I think that you hit the nail on the head, and this has been widely reported in the news, is the wide interest in school board forums. And there are leagues that have 20 or more candidates in a forum. And so we provided additional guidance recently on how to manage large candidate pools in forums. And we're working with those leagues. And my note I was making is I'm really excited about this opportunity to work with other areas outside of where we have leagues. And I like to talk to you outside of here about how we do that and how we kind of leverage our voter service leaders to help support that opportunity. So I think that's really great.
Yeah,
and I think that
exciting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the things is the strength of our policies and our training, and that lends a lot of credibility to what we do, even though not everybody agrees with our policy positions. Very rarely do anybody disagree or have issue with our conduct of candidate forums. So I think it's a very good model, and I really think that's great that we have an opportunity to help others with that.
And you and I have lots of catching up to do, don't we, Paul? But I just got this call from the Minnesota School Board Association the other day, and I mention it too because they reached out to us, and he said, because you are the trusted brand in candidate forums. So it really, we still, even though there are challenges in the partisan world sometimes to what we do, I think our ongoing effort here is, and our reputation stands strong. So pay attention to your forums. If you can help, great, but certainly help promote them, even in your own circle of friends and colleagues, anywhere you can. It's a simple link, right now, because all the forums are here. It's really easy to just say, check out the candidate forums, attend or watch them to learn more. And if you have an opportunity to write local letters to the editor, to your newspapers or whatever, this is also a great link to just say, these are all the candidate forums coming up in our area. All right, we'll go back to my screen here. So the next big thing, of course, is Vote 411. And Vote 411, as most of you know, is a nationwide tool by the League of Women Voters US. We are one of only a few states, however, that are doing all races on Vote 411. We have invested a lot of resources and time into making sure that all candidates down to county coroner. I didn't know there aren't a lot of them, but there are a few county coroner races, and soil and water board districts are represented on. And we're really excited about Vote 411. If you haven't had a chance, you really want to get, play with it, get in there, put your address in there. Everything you can do on the Secretary of State site, you can do here. This links to the Secretary of State site as well in places. But it also, I'm going to put my address in here, and it always wants to show you a few things. But it also, what Secretary of State can't do is link to candidates' information. And that's what we are able to do. So here's my voter guide in my area. It has all of the candidates. You can get to your polling place, but it also has, here's that scrolling list of upcoming debates and forums that are throughout the metro. It just, again, it's really nice for the voters at large to be able to see, wow, look at all of these forums coming up. All of that is on there. And then when we get back to the races themselves, the big issue for us certainly is trying to get our candidates to fill out the forms. And that's a big area we're going to talk about next. Is we send a survey via email or snail mail. You would be surprised to know, we're going to have we are not inviting candidates who don't have an opponent. So all of the different judges, anyone who's running unopposed, will automatically be elected. So we did make that break, because it's like another 3,000 candidates, but we have over 4,400 candidates that we will get. And out of those, almost a third do not list emails. We have to send letters too. Which is amazing to me, but it is a big effort for us to try to reach everyone and to get them then to fill out the forms. And so we also have tools you'll see, and that's another great way leagues can help us to remind the candidates in their local area to please fill out the survey. But if they do fill it out, for example, here's Julie Blaha. So some of them have put some of their things. So she hasn't responded. I think one of these people had. Now here's Ryan Wilson. He has responded and he's answered the questions. So it's great. I think it's, we've asked very simple questions, like simple, but I think good questions that help to differentiate a candidate. And you've got nice, clean, clear answers. And so it's really a value for these candidates to get their information in here. And so we can't do it for them. They get a link, they can go in and do it themselves. The other big thing about our candidate guide is that it is also completely bilingual. It is all in Spanish as well. So we're going to talk about that with our partners as well, which is, again, a terrific resource for us to be able to bring forward. So it has really is a one-stop shop. You can register to vote there, find out what's on your ballot, get to the Secretary of State site, find out about the candidates, find out about all the great stuff that's out there. Now, the other thing you can do, let's see where I want to put this, is, let me admit a few people here. The other thing about Vote 411 that I want to show you, give me 1 second here, are all of our amazing resources that we have available on our website. If you go to our website and go under member resources, and a reminder that that's where almost everything you'd want to find is, but under voter services, we have the link to Vote 411, but then we have all of the different Vote 411 postcards and bookmarks that are really fun, that are also in multiple languages. So we have these bookmarks, which will be part of our high school collaborative issue that we'll talk about coming up. These can all be printed out at your local print shop, or, you know, on your own printer and handed out to help people. These are great. These should totally go along with any registration you're doing. And then we have it also in a postcard form. But we also have it in 4 languages. We have it in Somali, and we have it in Hmong. So we have it in, and Spanish. So we have it in 4 different languages that you can have this information. Here it is in Somali. So this is a really great set of new tools for all of you to engage voters, and having a voter guide that is very mobile friendly, computer friendly, and also friendly in a variety of languages. So, Vote 411, big questions. The other big thing again about Vote 411 is the piece that you can do, and on our website you can find it again, and there's a link to it, but it is this piece of helping candidates themselves get to the information. So we really, you know, if you have candidates that you know, or, and really encourage your local leagues to help reach out. We've given a lot of tools to the local league voter service chairs to help them reach out to the candidates themselves. I'm just going to go back to these resources here really quick. Because we also have orientation about how to use Vote 411, so much there. So lots of good stuff. Any questions about anything I've said so far? Are you guys good? Because I want to also talk about our partnerships. And this is another place that you can help, but another place we're going is the piece of really helping recruit partners for the voter service work we do. And we really are trying to do more and more with partners. But one of the things with Vote 411, we've started reaching out to different partners that we work with in other ways. So one of our big partners in Vote 411 is Forum Communications. And Forum Communications runs about 14, we have about 14 newspapers, especially in greater Minnesota, that Forum covers. They're doing a great job of covering our voter guide with us in greater Minnesota, which is a great partnership. But I wanted to also point out a new relationship we have with COPAL. COPAL is a wonderful organization working with Latinx people in our state. And they are a new partner with us. So we have a logo for them. But if they have what's called the Minnesota Latino Vote, and what they've done is they have great stuff that really talks to their population about the election. But they've also then integrated the links, what's on my ballot. Because we are bilingual, they're able to link to our Vote 411 site. So this is really exciting for us this year to be able to offer this bilingual site and to build our partnerships with groups serving people who speak Spanish. So it's really living out our DEI principles, but also, you know, just gives us a lot more reach and being able to use our tools for a wider part of the population. So we're working with lots of other partners. We hope to really fill out this section, but if anyone has ideas or other partners they think would really want to get on board, and by being a partner, we simply mean willing to promote the Vote 411 website on their website, and we would then also support and promote these organizations. So it's a real win-win. All right, So lots happening with Vote 411. I also wanted to point out again our Pledge to Vote program. Our Pledge to Vote program is really popular and it's very, very easy. If you go down here, if you text Min Vote or Youth Vote to 33222, you will get texts that just remind you about the important dates of our election, important information. We don't solicit or do anything else. All we have are people's cell phone numbers, but we text out information to remind them of the important dates. Absentee voting begins. There'll be a big text going out there. We have many hundreds of people on our Textedly site. Again, a really quick way that you can remind people, especially at voter service tables and voter registration tables, hey, just text MinVote to 33222 and get updated on when our elections are happening, when key deadlines are. And that is another way we can engage people and remind them about these important dates. I also wanted to take a minute to talk about nonpartisanship. And on our webpage, we also have all our, under governance, we have our policies and guidance. And under voter service, we talk about, especially about best practices for staying nonpartisan in voter service. And one of the big things I do want to say, I do want to point out, because it's happened several times in the past couple of weeks. An example would be right now with Secretary Simons. He is the constitutional officer. It's election season, but we really do sort of have a blackout period. When people file for office, they really are candidates first. And so an example would be, we really don't want to have Secretary Simon out to our local leagues right now. If you want to have someone talk about elections, you want to have somebody else from his office, but not him. That's a way, again, to maintain our nonpartisan stance that we want to treat all candidates equally during the candidate timeframe.
Hey, Michelle, if I could offer, the other option is get one of your local county election officials to talk. You know, whether, depending on where you are, it may be, you may have an election director, it may be your county auditor, it may be your director of taxpayer and elections, but whoever that is in your county, because they can talk specifically how elections work in your county. And I think a lot of people forget that elections are run by the counties. They're not necessarily run by the state. Thanks.
Right. Thank you, Paul. Great idea. So a few of the do's, again, we want to register people to vote, right? But we always register anyone to vote based not on, this is where we don't combine it with our issues. So we're going to, if you look across here, you don't want to suggest that your purpose is to register people who support a specific gun policy position, for example. So, and this is when we dealt with move my thing over here. When we had students demand action, when we went to a rally where we registered voters, we had certain league members register voters, and other league members were there for the advocacy of the cause. But you don't do them both at once. So you don't want to have a sign like that says, vote for gun control, register here. We want to keep our registering and our voter service outreach separate from our issues. That doesn't mean we don't still work on our issues and are committed to our issues. But again, another do not discuss specific policy issues or candidates, elected officials, or parties when you're registering voters. Example of language to avoid: you should vote for politicians that support environmental protection. Do not share LWV positions alongside candidate information. Do not suggest that people vote for or against a candidate or party. And also do not wear materials or use language that refer to parties or candidates in a non-neutral manner. Now, this is a tough one, and we've had several questions about this, because technically, you know, under the new Supreme Court ruling that happened, I think it was 2 years ago now, there, you know, people really do have freedom of expression on election day, and they can't wear candidate material, but things like make Minnesota red again, or those types of things are things that you still can wear when you go voting. You can't tell people that they can't wear certain kinds of t-shirts. it's got to be really overt. Like you can't go into an election site and say, vote for Donald Trump or vote for Joe Biden. But when it comes to our candidate forums, we've had this question very much. And the way to think of it this way, however, is that in our candidate forums, we can certainly have rules, and we can certainly say that for certainly all of our volunteers, and we can ask the candidates not to wear this kind of, to wear neutral neutral clothing. But we also are not wanting to be sort of the clothing police, right? And so we've also really encouraged leagues to say, set the rules. You can also say at the start, if somebody's wearing a t-shirt that is outside of the rules, you can certainly say, this shirt is outside our rules, but it's not a matter of kicking someone out because of it. So we want to try hard to set rules and enforce rules, but we also want to sort of pick our battles for what we're willing to do. And we also do support free speech and people having free speech. So it can be a sticky wicket. I know that. And we're always here to help you with that as well. So I do want to say something too about this last do. The do engage potential voters on their interests and lives, so they can understand how elected officials impact their daily lives and the importance of voting. Example of language that is allowed: what issues do you care about? And that is what we know is people vote because they care about issues. And it also can be sticky though, right? Because if you're out there and you're registering voters and you ask people about their interests, then aren't we now combining it with talking about our issues? So the way to think of it is to think about having voters identify what's important to them, but don't make the connection to, oh, the league supports that too, or the league doesn't support that. So it's still good to connect with people on their issues, but don't make that connection to what the league is, in terms of us being able to say, oh, we agree with that or don't agree with that. Now, I know it sometimes feels complicated, but I just think in my head all the time, the filter I use is, okay, am I endorsing a candidate? Am I endorsing a party? And in that, just think of that. Then also think about, am I asking everyone to vote apart from the issues they care about? It's those kind of, think about those compartments. So hopefully that helps. Does anyone have any questions? I'm happy to. I am amazed. We keep getting new ones every year that, wow, that's a stumper. So keep the questions coming, but we know it's a big area. Susan.
Well, you have vote for change. You say we should avoid that or whatever, but vote for change can mean either parties wearing that t-shirt or both parties are wearing the t-shirt. And so I just wonder why that one phrase caught your attention.
No, it's a typical one. To vote for change would be something we don't want to say, because it is saying we're asking people to vote a specific way, whatever that way is, whether it's change from this or that. The idea would be, again, that during this season, we want to get out the vote for everyone, regardless of their issue, who they are. That's our role. It's our role. If people want to learn about, and we want to tell people about the candidates, and we want to tell people about the elections, but we don't want to necessarily connect it to, again, our work of the league telling people to vote for anything. We're not telling them what to vote for, and change would be a whatever that is. Paul, do you want to further?
And Michelle, at least the way I've read that policy is, what's intended is that the league is not saying vote for change. Now, somebody attending a forum in the audience has a t-shirt saying vote for change. That's permissible because it's not specific to a party or a candidate. And that's
what I'm saying.
Could mean whatever.
So I think the point we're trying to say is, everyone who's working with the candidate forum as volunteers and such, And in our rules, we want to say in our rules to the candidates themselves and to the people they bring that we want them to wear neutral clothing, that we want to, it's really appropriate and good to say, we want you to have that. And we want you, but we've never really said we're going to disallow, other than a outright candidate t-shirt, right, Paul? I mean, we're not telling local leagues to kick people out of a forum because they have a Vote for Change t-shirt on. We can set our rules, and we can also highlight the fact that we have asked everyone here today to wear neutral clothing. Some people have chosen not to do that, and we can manage it that way. But the clothing is hard because there are real protections to First Amendment rights that have been brought up already from the U.S. Supreme Court on voting. So we do need to we're not going to kick people out of forums for wearing those t-shirts.
Right. Well, we had a candidate in a forum in 2020 for city council wearing all red. I mean, so that was pretty clear what is a nonpartisan race, but it's pretty clear what message that candidate was sending.
Yeah.
But I don't,
right.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I personally wouldn't feel comfortable saying, well, pick a different color.
Right. I mean, the point is these are you want to try to do your best to uphold all of these rules and guidances, but we also, as the league, are not going to kick people out for it. And
Thank you.
And I think what we do want to do, though, is sometimes I get people saying to me, well, we're compromising our issues by not enforcing certain things. But again, it's really not up to, in that case, and with the candidate forums, I think we could be very strong to say we disagree with people wearing these different types of things, but we're not going to kick them out, because what does that look like? It just isn't worth it. So lots there. Oops, sorry, I keep going back. Okay. All right, so let's move on quickly to special populations. And we are in the middle of updating our youth civic engagement, but I'm going to bring it up anyway here because we now have a brand new contract that just started in July. So we're working hard to get caught up here, but I see Judy Zombrecker's on with us today from LWV Minneapolis. We're working with LWV Minneapolis and Brooklyn Park, Osseo, Maple Grove to develop a high school collaborative, voter and civic engagement collaborative, to develop more tools for schools to reach out to schools to help them better register and engage students. And so we're going to be kind of winding our fellows program into this collaborative because it'll start with Hennepin County, but we hope to make it statewide. We're partnering with the YMCA and they're across the state and their Center for Youth Voice as well. And these were, for example, some of the videos and the resources done by our fellows last year. And one of the things we realize is that there's a lot of great resources out there and a lot of us end up kind of duplicating, and we want to better share and collaborate. And so one of the things I will say is you'll see us also starting to recruit more for league members to help us reach out to schools in districts where we don't have leagues, because we are going to have a whole new webpage somewhat like this that has new resources that schools can use to reach out to students. And we're going to hope that you all will help us with those schools. So we are working on certain special populations. Another partnership that is new is the Area Agencies on Aging. If you're familiar with Senior Linkage Line, they reached out to us a couple of weeks ago, and they are a great phone source for seniors who maybe can't use Vote 411 or the Secretary of State site because they are not really good with the computers and phones, and they will actually help people work through finding out their ballot and registering for an absentee ballot over the phone with them. So we're going to help, we're going to create a one-pager that has all that information on there that we can share as well. So we're trying to work harder on some of our special populations that we know where we miss out on some of the growth within voting, some of the people who have the hardest time voting, I should say. All right, moving along, I also am excited to show you, if you have not seen yet, our new naturalization ceremonies webpage. As you know, the League has been for almost 20 years, registering new citizens to vote. And we have a really lovely new page that talks about the work we do. The way it's set up right now, I have to say, post-COVID has been really great, because instead of there being one big mass setting, they're registering voters at the River Center like every 15 minutes to a half an hour, which means we get a steady stream of people, and we really are registering like 98% of the voters, because before we would probably do like 90%, but there were such big groups, people didn't want to stand in line. So the way they have it now is really great. There's always ways to be, if you want to volunteer for this, any of you know, it's a phenomenal experience to watch all those new citizens and how excited they are about being here. We've also recognized Judy Stuthman, who still is amazing, even after some of the challenges she had this fall. Last winter, she is out there organizing these and just doing an amazing job. And so we also honor her as well. So we do a little timeline on here, which is really nice, of how our naturalization ceremonies have come to be. And yeah, it's great. Jackie's saying we had our youth engagement fellow registering with us at the August Academy, which is perfect, because you get such a feeling, again, of how important people do take their citizenship here. And so we're really happy to be part of that. We also have approval now from the court system to be able to hand out our Vote 411 materials in the 4 languages. So that is exciting, and we will start doing that, because we know that while we register a lot of folks to vote, a lot of them don't know necessarily how to vote. And now that we're able to do that and provide that in 4 languages, we're excited about that. All right, we're getting there. I'm moving my little bar around here, so sorry, me and my computer thing moving, so I can see you and see my screen here. Okay, last couple of things quickly. Voter Service Handbook is also online. For those of you who are maybe more in a leadership position, it really talks about all the kinds of additional work and things we're doing. We have the voter registration quick guides, all those kinds of things. If you're doing voter registration, lots of tips and tricks on our Voter Service Handbook. So just to draw that to your attention as well. And then before we get to Paul, Elections 411. This is also our new initiative that we just started, which really is a wonderful web page to help provide more information about how we know our elections are fair and accurate. We work with the Secretary of State's office on this and other election officials, and we have really good little one-liners for you to use about how elections work. This is a great site. Again, it would be a great program too in your local leagues to just talk about election security and election safeguards we have, and you could use this website and webpage as a format for that. So we talk about, how do we know voter registration is secure? All the different things that go on. We have these little one-liners, but you can also hit learn more. And then what we do is where we have additional resources, like in this case, there was a great video done on how the ballot boards work in Anoka County. We have linked to that video here. We have little call outs about the safeguards that are here. So a lot of really good detailed information about how elections work, how we know they are fair and accurate, with lots of links to really good information and sources across the political spectrum. And we're very proud of that. So you'll see the different types of information. We also have this election safeguards flyer. It's a one-pager. It's a good thing to have out that you can give away at, again, at any of your voter service events. we link to the Secretary of State's fact page. They also just did a really good one. We also have this replace false claims as part of our way of trying to share good information. We put links to all the different news sources that are coming out and reports that have come out across the political spectrum that verify that the 2020 elections were fair and accurate. And we know we need to do that because we know what's going on in Minnesota here too. We have groups that are organizing and mobilizing, sadly, to try to get the county observer, boards to change some of their election rules. And so we've been present in, done testimony in 4 counties now, and we are really working hard to create what we call a new county observer corps to help better have people in touch with the counties, to know who the county officials are, and to watch what the county board meetings are doing so that as I say, we can seed the soil. I always say the way to prevent the weeds of misinformation is to better seed our soil with accurate information. So we were quoted in this recent article. I'm actually being interviewed by NPR today on an article they're doing too about the groups in Minnesota that are helping to sow doubt in our elections. And that is their ultimate goal, is to sow doubt. Unfortunately, they have not been very successful. So that's the good news, but I would also attribute that to some of the pushback that our local leagues have been doing in these areas, which has been great. So a lot happening. Any questions about all of that before we have Paul talk a little bit about what's next for redistricting? All right, so redistricting in Minnesota, the road ahead, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I'll be fairly quick. It'll be fast and furious, and you should be able to see these slides separately to get the data. So go ahead, Michelle. And I've had the opportunity here over the last few months to be part of several national meetings talking about redistricting, where we are today, what we and other groups nationally, including League of Women Voters and other organizations, are doing. You know, our overall goal, and just so you know, for redistricting is to ensure the electrical district maps in Minnesota at all levels are drawn to serve the interests of residents and voters, not those of politicians or any single group or party. That can be gerrymandering at a state or federal level through congressional seats. It can be at the county level, where we do have, and I've observed it personally, you know, county commissioners drawing maps to suit their own personal interests and their electoral interests. You know, and we can point to multiple examples of that, you know, at some other time. But, you know, look, it's clear that elected officials draw the maps to suit their own purposes. And we want there to be maps that suit the interest of the voters and the residents of Minnesota at all levels. Go ahead. The next slide talks about where we are currently. And I had the opportunity to speak with a group at a senior living area up in Shoreview a few weeks ago. And their interest in, to Michelle's point initially, you know, was, why did our districts all change? Why are we voting for different legislative candidates than we used to have? And why are the people across the street from us in a different legislative district than we are? So, you know, this is a real thing. And what I ended up that conversation with talking about the current state of redistricting and the vulnerabilities, what can be done. And it was kind of like, boy, this is gloom and doom. And I said, well, not really. You know, there's lots of good things going on. We have a lot of benefits in Minnesota, but we have vulnerabilities. You know, we still remain vulnerable to statewide gerrymandering. We have had divided government each of the last 6 redistricting cycles. That has prevented any single party from abusing that process. We know for certainty that if any party, Democrat or Republican, were to gain the House, the Senate, and the governor's mansion during a redistricting cycle, they will draw maps that benefit their party. That is just what they will do. It's a fact. And despite what legislators may say about the current system working, or I'm sure I can work with my peers, that the evidence doesn't support that. We have large cities with at-large cities councils, which really, you know, eliminates the potential or limits the potential for groups that are not traditionally represented, maybe that are economically challenged, diverse communities from being represented. City and county officials resist public input and use a least change approach, which is not required by law, but it's a way to continue the status quo. City charters don't reflect commitments or interests of city councils and don't hold officials accountable. We got multiple examples where city councils vote to do certain things and then they don't do it because the charter doesn't require it. Where city council says they want maps to draw a certain way and the charter commission, which is appointed and not accountable to anybody, chooses not to do that. So we've got to make changes there. Minority communities are the most interested, motivated, and impacted. And that's been, we did work with Copal, who Michelle talked about. We worked with Council of American Islamic Relations. We worked with Isaiah. We worked with Minnesota Voice. We worked with many organizations in redistricting. And they are much more motivated and interested in this work, frankly, than the non-minority communities. And finally, interest groups are continuing to work on redistricting. We should not think that groups that want to take advantage of the redistricting process to their political benefit are not going to continue. They are. So go ahead, Michelle, next slide. So the focus areas, local redistricting. This is something I came upon about a year ago as being a real significant area of opportunity. As I've been in national forums and breakout groups, I think everybody nationally is converging on the value and importance of local redistricting. This is, city councils, school districts, counties, and because it is a place to keep people engaged. It's a place where we can take action before the next census. It is an area where we can educate people, get them mobilized, get them energized by redistricting. And we can do things that will establish opportunities for representation by traditionally underrepresented communities, whether it be people that are economically disadvantaged or minority or immigrant groups, because that is a stepping stone to other elective office and other political power. So there's a huge amount of benefit in focusing on local redistricting that many organizations, including LWV, are converging on. And that includes city and school district electoral districts, city charters, community education, and then preparing for local redistricting. One of our big lessons learned is this last cycle was we were not prepared to engage and challenge and then litigate, if necessary, county redistricting and city redistricting. So that's a learning, not just in Minnesota, but nationally. When I was at the National Convention, we all talked about the need for better contingency planning and preparation. State redistricting, we're going to continue to participate in the National Redistricting Coalition. LWV is not disbanding their redistricting efforts. There's a national group called the Charge Hub that is continuing and meeting quarterly. This work is continuing, so we are not going to stop and restart. Again, that's a lesson learned. Continuing to amplify legislation and education mobilization, building on our 2020 cycle partnerships. Many of those are carrying over to things that Michelle has talked about with voter support and voter mobilization, and working with groups like Minnesota Voice, Copal, and so on. We're targeting 2026 for constitutional amendment in Minnesota, working with Common Cause Minnesota, who really is leading in that effort, and the Our Maps Minnesota campaign, which we are part of for the last cycle. So that's going to continue, and there is a target for that because we find that the closer we get to the redistricting cycle, the more the parties start to hedge their bets on, maybe I can get a trifecta and I can control redistricting. And then crossover benefit. Michelle, go ahead. The ongoing, we talked about this, fair representation redistricting, that's a national group sponsored by the Funders Committee at a national level. This is people like the Ford Foundation, Joyce Foundation. They are the major funders. That is continuing a lot of effort there. National League I talked about, there's a continuing budget priority as a part of Women Powered Democracy to expand and sustain redistricting work, and support for states, those states with the interest and continued opportunity in redistricting will also receive support, grants, and staff support from national. So we're hoping to be part of that. And a People Power for Mass program will relaunch in 2025 to prepare for the next redistricting cycle. And that is really what started in 2019 for this last cycle. And everybody knows that that was too late. That is, everybody knows that. And so that's part of what the National League is doing. The Minnesota Council of Foundations has established a census and democracy group that I am part of and the league is part of. That's going to maintain that census coalition and the redistricting coalition that we had through this last cycle through toward the next cycle. So continuing that work. And then Common Cause I talked about. Next slide, please. So that's it. A lot of stuff going on. So just so you know, and I have promoted in our all member news the opportunity for presentations on what happened the last cycle. That's really the theme of communications this year, is to keep everybody engaged in what happened, where are we now, kind of what's coming next, so that we are all staying engaged. It doesn't take everybody to be engaged in this, but it takes some people to be engaged to continue that foundational level of understanding and work, because it's going to take all of us to get a constitutional amendment through to change how we do redistricting in Minnesota. So thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And we're so thankful to Paul for continuing to do this work as a volunteer. It is a nearly full-time job. So we thank you so much for continuing to lead that effort for us. So yeah, so lots happening, but lots of resources. I keep thinking too, it's while there's a lot and it can feel overwhelming, if everyone can just do one thing, that's the way I sort of think about it. If there's, you can volunteer to help at one candidate forum. If you can, print out some bookmarks and take them to your food, your local food shelf and distribute those. I mean, there's so many ways we can engage voters, and we're trying to give you the tools to do those. So if everybody picked one, it would go a long way. So hopefully this gives you a little input into what we're doing, what resources are available to you, and also in your local leagues to really be leaders and encouragers at your local league to help with these efforts. All right, so that's a lot, but thank you all for the work you're doing and for your interest today. And if we don't have any questions, we'll wrap it up and get another cup of coffee. All right, take care, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Michelle.
Yep, thank you, Paul.